Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan podcast. So great to be with you. I am Dr. Foojan Zeine, a psychotherapist, author, and the originator of the awareness integration theory. Our conversation is about what matters most in our lives, our minds, thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. For all of your beautiful souls, great people who keep asking me about our latest book, I just want to share with you what they are. A couple of good news. One is the Intentional Parenting book that is a practical guide to awareness integration theory. I wrote this with two of my amazing colleagues, Dr. Nicole Jafari and Dr. Eileen Manoukian, who are both experts they're both experts in human dynamic and human early development of childhood. And we went through this book for you and put it in chapters, for example, infancy and then toddler and preschool and school age and preteen and teen and late teen. And we brought all the aspects of developmental aspects of what's normal, what might be some of the issues that parents go through, and looking at it from the awareness integration theory and give you some tools in order how to be with your children. This book is great for teachers who are working with children, for parents, grandparents, and all of that. For all of you wonderful coaches and therapists who want to become certified in the awareness integration therapy, this is the book for you. Clear the past, create a new future, and live a fulfilled life. And this book goes through all of the phases, the theoretical background and interventions of this methodology, which is being used as a psychotherapy model and also an educational model. We are going to have my app, a Foojan app, will be out with the awareness integration theory. And we're going to need a lot of therapists and coaches across the world to be able to support people who are going to have the app. And the app is going to go through looking at different aspects of your life and taking you through the whole process. It is set up for you to have it is set up for you to have experience of a self-help with it. However, there are times where whether somebody is going through trauma or they need a voice, they need a face, they need someone to work with. And I think that's the beauty of also having the ability to work with someone who knows this methodology and the theory. So if you are interested, just contact me, foojanzeine.com or awarenessintegration.com, and I will definitely get you to some of the courses. In this episode, I am excited to chat with Kimberly Brown. She is a popular meditation teacher and author. She leads classes and workshops that emphasize the power of compassion and kindness to reconnect us to ourselves and others. Her teachings provide an approachable pathway to personal and collective well-being through effective and modern techniques based on traditional practices. Kimberly studied in both Tibetan and Insight School of Buddhism and is a certified mindfulness instructor. An updated and revised edition of her book, Steady, Calm, and Brave, the 25 Buddhist Practices of Resilience and Wisdom in Crisis, will be released in January 2023. But today, we're going to be actually talking about her latest book, which is called Navigating Grief and Loss, 25 Buddhist Practices to Keep Your Heart Open to Yourself and Others. We had an amazing conversation, and I truly enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I did and learned from it. And we do have the practice at the end, so you got to listen all the way to the end. Subscribe to this podcast or my YouTube channel and connect with me through my website, foojanzeine.com, or any of my social media. If you're wanting to do your own work, your self-help book, and you want to share it with people, especially since Christmas is coming, this is the book, Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want. And you can find all of these books in Amazon and or my website. And this one is for you, just to sit down, journal with it, and go through your beautiful process. And I love to hear about it. So go through the process, call me or text me or email me, because I love to hear from you. So without further ado, here we are with Kimberly Brown. Well, here we are with Kimberly Brown. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Foojan. It's really, really nice to be here.
Well, we're going to be talking about your book, Navigating Grief and Loss. First of all, I'm really, really glad that I saw your book, because as I was going through it, I was looking at every aspect of grief. Like, I kept going from one topic to another, and I'm like, yes, yes, yes. I've probably experienced most of the chapters that you have talked about. And what I love about the book is not only that you talk about the subject, but you bring a meditation and a way of looking at it and a way of experiencing it, which really does honor your grief, honor the emotion that is coming up for us in such a natural way. And I think that most of us have been trained to push it aside, avoid it, run through it really quick. And for some reason, obviously I'm a therapist, so for some reason, it has become as if mental health looks like you run through grief and you're happy and dandy right after it, which is not accurate. And I love it that in your book, you go, again, the word just respect and honoring those parts of us that needs to just be there and heal itself. So it's a beautiful book, everyone. I really suggest for all of you to get the book, Navigating Grief and Loss, 25 Buddhist Practices to Keep Your Heart Open to Yourself and Others. So tell us, what was it about grief that got you to want to write about it?
Right. Well, you know what you were just saying, that when you were reading the book, you thought, oh, I can see myself there and in that experience. And that was one of the reasons that I wrote the book, because we are all going to experience grief. Life is filled with change and loss, and there's not much we can do. We cannot control all of that. And so the main reason that I wrote the book is to allow us all to acknowledge that. And as you just said, as a therapist, you've noticed, well, the way people deal with grief, well, maybe we want to put it over here and leave it alone, or we're going to kind of tie it up in a box in 2 weeks and it's done and it's on the shelf, but that is not how the grieving process works. It may be very surprising to you. It may go on much longer than you would like. It may sometimes look like anger and frustration. It may sometimes look like deep, deep sadness, And so the reason I wrote this book is because, of course, I have experienced grief and loss. Both of my parents have died, and those were difficult. My dad, though, was 90 years old. So it was very hard, and there were, a lot of sadness, and I miss him. And yet it seemed natural. He'd lived a very nice life. And then someone very close to me, a very old friend, her name is Denise, or was Denise, died. And that just knocked me over. I mean, literally knocked me down. That was maybe 4 years ago. And I benefited so much from the tools that I'd learned from being a Buddhist student and a meditation teacher. And you don't have to be a Buddhist to use your mind to cultivate mindfulness, to be able to sit with difficult feelings, and to be able to offer yourself, kindness and compassion. So that was really the impetus for the book. And I hope whoever reads it will not just read it, but also do the practices.
Yes. One of the nicest thing that I saw in this book is like, not only you talk about, death, we're losing someone to death, but also losing different, from one phase of life to another, losing a job, losing a part of our body or youth. There's so many different losses, divorce, which I deal with in my practice almost every day. And people go through all of these losses in a different way. And one of the ways that I've seen it keep holding on to, and which makes it kind of like a complicated grief, is that there's all these meanings that we give in the about the loss. And it is so hard for us to let go, especially if something was pleasant to us. And sometimes I've noticed not only that we're letting go of something that is passing by, but with it, we're also letting go and grieving for the idea of what, we should have had. So it all becomes very convoluted. What are your ideas about this type of meanings that we give to grief and loss?
That's fascinating, Fujan, because in the Buddhist tradition, we're encouraged, and the practices encourage us to take a look beyond the stories. Most of us that we have stories every minute and judgments, and then we get caught up in them. And it really takes us away from our direct experience, not only of our senses, but of our feelings, And so part of the book and the practices in it is to allow people to develop tools to see their stories. They don't have to make them disappear. It's not easy to do that, but to see them for what they are. This is a story. So, and it's around a loss that I had. It's a feeling about what happened at work before I was fired. And often in my experience, people are holding on to that, what happened at work before I was fired, instead of feeling, wow, it is so painful. And I'm so scared to lose my job and have this experience, So that is the way kind of to work with it. And also something that you pointed out, and it's in the book too, Foojan, is sometimes with a loss, we have to honor that we had hopes or, plans that were predicated on something that now no longer exists, and to be able to open up to that and say, yeah, I had hoped, for example, my mom was an alcoholic, and our relationship was very troubled. And after she died, I kind of thought I wouldn't have a lot of grief because our relationship was so hard. But I had even more grief, and it was very complicated because I felt a lot of anger and also a lot of guilt. And I realized, well, any hope for a better relationship with her is now gone. And I really had to mourn that story and say, oh, yeah, that is sad. It's sad that that isn't going to happen. And in doing so, it felt I didn't have to hold on to it so tightly.
Mm-hmm. One of the areas that was interesting as I read it was the grief we have for strangers. And it really hit home for me, Kimberly, because I don't know if you know or not, recently there's an uprising of the women in Iran. And many of the young women are being killed, and a lot of just young people are being killed. And you see like high school students or elementary students are getting up, they're taking a stand for themselves, and they're being brutally killed. And I just can't handle this concept. I go into my grief, and it's funny because I'm not going into my rage, but I go into such a sadness. And I saw that part of the book that you were talking about, the grief we have for strangers. these are strangers. They're not part of my family. They're not in my life. But, sometimes you look at like the war in Ukraine, or you look at something outside of you, which brings so much sadness. And it's almost like you're feeling their grief, or you're feeling the loss of their hope. And with them, it's the loss of not only their hope, but a hope for like kind of like humanity and the graciousness. And I know that, learning about the Buddhist concept, this concept of compassion really, really helps. But then it has like a double-edged sword, which is funny because in one essence, the compassion, it becomes so much that you're almost like feeling their feeling. The other side of it is that when I find myself not having compassion for the brutality or the people who are being brutal, or the perpetrators or the villains or the dictators or people killers or whatever, I find myself not being compassionate about them. And then I get this like fear, like, oh, how can I be also very cruel, or is it just my anger? And it's like this, kind of like confusion that shows up as because the meditation and the Buddhist concept is like love and compassion. And sometimes I hear I listen to Ram Dass, and it was like, even if somebody I don't like, I put them in there, and I keep bringing them love until I can even find them, although I don't like what they're doing. And it's a struggle, Kimberly.
Yes, yes, it is, Foojan. And thank you so much for your practice and even attempting to offer your compassion and love to strangers and to people that are difficult, because it's very hard to do. Part of recognizing and feeling heartbreak for these people that you're talking about, the women in Iran, and then of course there's war in Ukraine, and there's always difficulties and disasters and deaths, and we read about them and hear about them more and more. And when we allow ourselves to feel that sadness, feel that grief, feel maybe anger on their behalf, the unfairness, first of all, it's an expression of our humanity. It's very beautiful to allow ourselves to do that and to recognize, okay, we'll never meet them, and they're human just like us. They have the same sorrows and the same struggles and the same joys, So it's very beautiful, I think, to, reconnect in that way. And from a Buddhist view, and I think just from a wisdom view, Foojan, that when we don't look away, which is the other way I think we're trained, right? And it makes sense. We're inundated by difficulty. What do? Okay, well, we just turn the page, or we go do something else, or we keep scrolling, right? But looking away like that, then you lose the connection with these people. And there may be ways, if you can keep a connection with them, to help them in the future. I mean, it's true, I can't, quote unquote, do something for the women of Iran right now. But you know what? The US has different policies. I can keep them in my heart and my mind the next time I vote. I can keep them in my heart and my mind the next time, I travel. Whatever it is, to not look away. That's what allows us then to have this compassion. And we can have the compassion, and compassion here is defined as empathy, feeling their struggle, with a sense also of, how could I help? Is there a way I could help? And maybe the only way I can help right now is to keep them in my heart and send them, good wishes, but I can have this sense of helping and supporting in some way. And all of us have this ability, but it's just sometimes feels very overwhelming. So a big part of compassion training in the tradition is also wisdom training, which is, hey, the world is not up to me. Foojan, I wish it was up to you or me. I bet we'd have a really, much more balanced and equitable place. But it's not up to me. It's all out of my control, And B, everything changes. We can use our words and our actions to help bring about change that may take time, that can support, these people that are grieving. But I think our culture, we're doing ourselves a disservice when we look away, because it's the same as what you started with. People think we're going to just take this grief and put it in a box, our personal grief and our grief for the world. But instead, we're saying, no, 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 we can have it, we can feel it, we can learn from it, and we can recognize all of the ways in which we can bring kindness to ourselves and others in that.
Yes. I want everybody to see your book, Navigating Grief and Loss, the 25 Buddhist Practices to Keep Your Heart Open to Yourself and Others by Kimberly Brown. Kimberly, you put in every chapter, you put in a meditation that is directed to the point of the content or the topic of the grief that you're talking about. What is it that you want to share with our audience about the meditative practices? I know you've been a meditation teacher and a follower for a long time. If you could talk to us also from a perspective of people who might have a little bit of a struggle with meditation, right? So, for example, when I want to do something in a routine, and I do everything on a routine basis, but when it comes to meditation, it's interesting because I can be in a meditative state really quickly, but I don't do the routine. It's as if I sit and it's nah, it's not it. And then I kind of go away. And then sometimes it's oh, it's time. It's almost like for me, it calls me versus me calling it. It's okay, come back, and now you need to go in, and then I'll create the space to go in. But if I'm doing this every morning, for example, at 7 a.m., it doesn't work out. And I know that working with people in my office, even attempting to create meditation for them or giving them sometimes the homework to do, you hear all these different types of struggles that people have, or resistances, or just style, let's say, that they have. What are your suggestions for people where just regular meditation advices that people give, it's just not going to work?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I mean, first of all, it's hard for everyone, especially when you begin, hard being, well, we're not accustomed to being still for so long, we're not accustomed to really, what does it mean to look at your mind? What does it mean to pay attention? I have a friend who teaches mindfulness in schools with kids, and she was saying that a lot of teachers and even parents will say to kids, pay attention. And they don't really know what it means. So they just kind of sit up straight with their eyes wide open, right? So we're learning these skills that maybe we hadn't learned, to begin with. And from my tradition, the practices are, they're designed not to push anything away and not to make anything happen, so it's not like in this tradition that you would look for a blissed out state, or you'd feel happy necessarily, or you'd feel sad. The orientation is to be able to have kindness and openness to whatever is arising, so that we can have balance, whatever the circumstances are, including grief. Now, learning that, the first step for most of us is to practice a form of mindfulness, of coming back, concentration. So many people will learn to put their attention on their breath, maybe on their nose or their chest, and just keep coming back. And they'll notice, oh my gosh, now I'm thinking about dinner. Okay, I'm going to come back to my breath. Oh, now I'm remembering that movie I saw. Okay, I'm going to come back to my breath. And that develops, this muscle, this focus muscle. So that's one that is kind of get the focus and the steadiness. And then another quality of meditation is the quality of insight. To start to notice, oh, everything's changing all the time. I'm going to, I go on meditation retreats. And sometimes, I'm there for a week or two, they're silent and you practice and practice. And some days, I sit and my mind gets so still. And Foojan, I think, oh my God, this is it. I am totally blissed out. This is so great. And the next day I sit and my mind is wild, right? And what's that teaching me? It's teaching me that everything is changing all the time, including my mind. And the what meditation does is allow me to relate to it differently. It doesn't suddenly give me a blissed out mind. It means, oh, I'm kind and I'm clear with this scattered mind, and I'm kind and I'm clear with this peaceful mind. I have the wisdom that it's all going to change. Not, everything's not entirely up to me, the circumstances, and I can live in a sense of equanimity, with it all. So that's the insight piece that comes up. And finally, one of the practices that's been the most helpful to me, and it's throughout my book, is a practice called metta, M-E-T-T-A. It's a Pali word from the early Buddhist tradition. It's translated as loving kindness. And this practice is offering ourselves, offering each other, offering strangers phrases of kindness, phrases of wisdom. May I be safe. May you be happy. May we be peaceful and at ease with each other. Okay. And this sort of practice, the brain scientists love this one because they see in about 12 weeks of regular practice, less self-criticism and more pro-social behavior. I think we live, Foojan, you're a therapist, so you can speak to this too, but we live in a time of deep self-criticism, self-loathing. There's a lot of cruelty that we're expressing to ourselves. And my experience with this practice, both personally and with my students, is that it gives permission to, bring kindness, bring peace, bring gentleness, instead of, oh, that was so stupid, I'm so dumb, why am I doing it that way? I always think this way. When is that going to, many of my students come to me, they want to be better people. And from a Buddhist view, they don't need to be better people. They need, and we all need, to simply recognize all of the love and kindness and compassion and wisdom that we have and start to develop it for ourselves.
Very much. As you were talking, I realized it was funny because when my mind is really busy and I'm trying to meditate, it's like, no, it's going to be boring there. No, I got a lot of stuff to do. What do you mean? Just quiet down. No. So it's resisting it that way. And then finally, when the transition is done and I'm in this like blissful state, and then it's like, all right, like, you're done. You need to, no, this is fine. I just want to stay here. It's too busy over there. I don't want to do anything. I just want to be. And it's interesting that each state, I'm enjoying it for itself and it's resisting to go to the next state, which is the other one.
That's beautiful. And that is a profound insight. It's the insight of our resistance to change. All of us, it's a moment to moment. No, I want things just to be the way they are right now. Can't happen. But we're constantly, in small ways and big, trying to fix it. And in grief, that's the biggest one. We can't control loss. We can't control all of these changes. And it becomes almost dangerous, like trying to not allow that change to happen.
Yes. And I think in grief, one of the most important factors are the concept of each one of us grieving in a particular way, which is just who we are. And I know that, there's systems such as Kubler-Ross and other systems that, stage it and create, okay, grief is going to go through these phases. And sometimes when we categorize things, it's helpful because we're looking at, okay, I'm part of the category, so I'm normal. The other side of it is that categories don't fit us all with all of our capacity. So it kind of also limits us. Or it feels like, okay, maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe the way that I'm doing it it's abnormal and it shouldn't be. Or other people tell me that, my way is weird and it should be their way. And I think this concept of knowing and acknowledging that we all grieve in a different way, and it's okay to grieve in a different way. And I think that each person, when they get to know that that's what they're doing, and I saw it even in your book, which is that the person doesn't name it. They'll be depressed, they'll be sad, they'll be vulnerable, they'll be angry, and they'll have all of these different types of emotions, the fear, the anxiety about the future, but they just don't call it grief. They feel it's as if like, okay, the notion we talked about as if like grief should have been the first 3 days or a week, and then so whatever is happening after that, it's not grief, you're depressed or something wrong with you. So this naming it and really getting that this is just your way of being with this. And people take different time frame for themselves. Somebody does it in 3 days and somebody does it in 3 years. And I think that it has different phases. Like it goes from very intense to to mild to sometimes intense again, because we're walking to the next level of life and it shows up again, and a lot of people who come to me because of the divorce proceeding, I usually say it takes about 2 years, even after the day that you've signed and it came to your home, because it's not like you're going to have the same intensity at the beginning, but it's just every time you're going to come to the next level of life. The first time you want to date, the first time you were selling your home that you lived with your spouse, the same, the first time you're going to be with your child at a ceremony, and then instead of you sitting with your spouse is sitting with someone else. All of these different scenarios are going to bring a rush of something again, which is again part of the grief that shows up. And I think that when we get to see our style and whatever is working for us and just walking through them, and I saw that in your book, the meditations that have been set up for each one of these topics of grief really deals with whatever the issue is at hand on that particular one and allows you to release it. Can you share a little bit about how you chose those meditation skills based on the topic?
Yeah. I mean, many of them, or all of them really, came from my own experience using them or with students. And as you say, it's unique. Each of us will grieve in a unique way. Our process will be unique. What seems to be not unique is this a sense of frustration of when it's going to end. Well, I don't know if it's just very common, right? I had a dear friend, her mom had died in the summertime, and around Christmas, my friend called me. She felt very kind of overwhelmed and nervous. And I said, well, no, your mom just died. And she said, no, she died 6 months ago, Kim. Okay. It's like you said, she was moving to this next level. She was having a Christmas without her mom, and there seems to be, we have this frustration with what's going on in our heart and our mind. And the practices are all designed to say, okay, no, it's all right. It's all right. It's all right to feel this way. It's normal. And as you were saying, it's not this kind of straight line. Someone dies or I get divorced and I'm just going to make this progression up. It goes like this for most of us, and it might take time and it might seem like, oh, I'm great. And a few months later, I'm, feeling uneasy. So the feelings that come up, they're not uniform either. It might be, I don't know. After my friend Denise died, I was so angry. I was shocked at how angry I was. So I have some practices in the book that will help someone who may be feeling anger or even rage after someone, dies or in a divorce, and being able to work with anger and the body feelings that come up, which are really powerful. Other types of feelings that people might have. Some people's minds seem very unsteady, very scary, and to be able to not only practice with that and look at that, but to do some meditations and some contemplations about receiving help. Some of us, it's very hard to receive help. It's really hard to ask for help and get support. But doing meditation, saying, okay, I am open to, recognizing I'm supported by others and I'm not alone, and taking a step to call people I love, to find a therapist, to read a book, whatever it takes. But as you say, through this process, there are so many different feelings or circumstances that are going to come up, that I tried to use meditations that had been helpful to me in these different circumstances and to people close to me and my students.
Yes, it's beautiful to go through the meditation processes. I want everybody to see this again. If you are watching the videos, navigating grief and loss, or even you're hearing us on the podcast, navigating grief and loss, 25 Buddhist practices to keep your heart open to yourself and others, by Kimberly Brown. Kimberly, why Buddhist practices? Is it because of the meditation processes that you were, or was it that there's you've gravitated to the Buddhist philosophy?
It's a good question. And I have to say, I just have to have a disclaimer that I'm a Buddhist, but I carry it lightly. It's not a religion to me. I don't believe in, a God named Buddha. But the practices, as well as the teachings, are very, very useful in our human life. The Buddhist teachings tell us right away, hey, everybody's going to get older. Everybody's going to get sick, and everybody is going to die, including you. This is not good. This is not bad, but you will suffer a lot if you're trying to avoid that. Mm-hmm. And so all of these practices are designed to allow us to have compassion and kindness to ourselves and everybody else who live in this human realm. And this is the way life, will unfold for us.
Is there anything that you want to share that we haven't shared and you really want people to know?
I really want everyone to know, Foojan, that you can meditate, that you can do it. It may seem awkward at first, and you will probably feel like, oh, I'm not doing it right. It's not working. It's working. It takes time. Sit every day just for 10 minutes and just for 2 weeks and follow your breath. You will see a change in your relationship to yourself. And if you can't even get there, at least take 5 minutes a day without your devices. Put your phone away, turn off the TV, turn off your computer, just sit quiet in your kitchen, have a cup of tea. Those are ways of really, truly taking care of yourself that will benefit you.
Can you give us a little bit of a meditation to complete this conversation?
I would be happy to, Foojan. Would you be willing to practice with me?
Absolutely.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So, just go ahead and close your eyes and just start to notice the sensations of your body, feeling your feet, your seat, your belly, relaxing your shoulder blades, relaxing the back of your head. And just noticing that you're breathing. And you can notice that you might feel your belly moving. You might feel air coming in and out of your nose. And taking a moment to recognize someone that you've loved in life that has loved you in a very easy way. It's called a benefactor. It's usually an aunt or an uncle or a very dear friend or a pet, someone not complicated like family or spouse. And when you have an image of them, making a connection and offering these 2 phrases. May you be happy. May you be at peace. May you be happy. May you be at peace. May you be happy. May you be at peace. And just silently for a few seconds saying that to them. And now, Foojan and anyone else listening, including yourself, with this loved one, this being that has held you close in an easy way, delighted in you, and you. And maybe you imagine the 2 of you together, or maybe you just feel the 2 of you. May we be happy. May we be at peace. May we be happy. May we be at peace. May we be happy. May we be at peace. And just for a few seconds, repeating these phrases. Offering it to everyone in the world right now. May we be happy. May we be at peace. And whenever you're ready, you can let go of that meditation, bring your attention here. Thank you, Foojan, for practicing. And of course, anyone who's listening, you can, you can use those phrases for yourself. You can include others. You can include your family. You can include people who you haven't even met. When we mentioned the women in Iran and people in Ukraine and everyone struggling.
Thank you so much. It automatically brings a beautiful smile on people's face and hearts. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with me.
You're welcome, Foojan. It was a pleasure.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing life for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, bye-bye.